A very good evening to all of you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Suryansh. And I hope you guys are all set for today's session, the second in the series in Zero to Hero IPMAT session. Now, today's class is going to be about main idea and title, something which you might have encountered from time to time. Very important, very crucial when it comes to your IPMAT preparation. Also, before we start with the questions, of course, we are going to deal with a little bit of theory so that you have a clear idea as to what are the pointers that should be kept in mind when you are, attempting these questions. Now, good evening, Tamanya. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope I'm perfectly audible as well as visible. So, where can you find the best study material? I think with us, if you enroll. Okay, all right. So before we start with main idea and title, I would like to hear your opinions about what do you consider as the main idea or the title. Let's see. And do not be afraid of telling the wrong answers because obviously we are here to learn. So we are going to learn something out of it. So, what do you think should be the correct approach when I'm trying to figure out the main idea of the passage? Can I simply read one of the paragraphs and derive the main idea? Is it possible? Can I simply limit or restrict myself to the introductory and the concluding paragraph? No, right? When it comes to main idea, it's always suggested that you read the entire passage thoroughly. The more thorough you are, the easier it is to get to the correct answer. Okay, so the first thing that needs to be kept in mind is we need to read the entire passage first, and that too very carefully. The second important thing is we need to be extremely cautious about potential traps. There could be a number of traps which will be obviously, intentionally kept to confuse you. So the first thing is when it comes to main idea, of course, you are going to, maybe see many extreme word options. Okay, extreme words are words like always, only, never. Okay, then you might also come across options which are narrow in scope. Narrow का मतलब क्या होता है? Let me just write it for you to make it easy. Okay, I hope now I am audible. Just give me a quick confirmation. Okay. So I was talking about the potential traps that you might, encounter here. The first one is extreme options. When I talk about extreme options, you need to be careful about words like absolute, solely, primarily, mainly, always, all, never, etc. Okay. When we talk about narrow scope options, narrow का मतलब होता है something that only and only offers us an insight on one of the paragraphs of the passage. इसका मतलब है कि पैसेज में चार पैराग्राफ्स होंगे बट इट ओनली कैप्चर्स द आइडिया ऑफ वन और टू पैराग्राफ्स सो दैट इज नैरो इन स्कोप देन लेट्स talk about partially true options. I think most people, because they are in a state of rush when they are solving these mocks, when they are solving their papers, they only read the options halfway through. And तभी ऐसा होता है कि partially true options, क्योंकि वो आधे तो सही ही होते हैं, we do not really take the pain of reading the entire option, and that's where we make a big mistake. Then the last one is unnecessary details which are not present in the passage but kind of looks like it is connected to the passage. So there might be instances where you come across an option which is related to the topic of the passage, but something that does not have an evidence in the passage. So, in simple words, I can say that main idea is, I would say, a very, very clever, very wise way to summarize the entire passage. It is like the gist of the passage, right? And it is the condensed version of a passage. In 2 to 3 lines, I kind of get the outline of what I'm going to read about. Now, when I talk about main idea as a condensed version of the passage, if I talk about the title is actually a condensed version of the main idea. ठीक है? So, yes, we'll be solving few questions based on main idea as well as titles. So, before that, I was just going through the important things that you need to remember so that you can keep it in mind when you're solving those questions. ठीक है? Now, coming back to, I was talking about title. Title, mein generally what happens is people are of the opinion that it should be very catchy. But if it is only catchy but does not really capture the essence of the entire passage, then how can it be answer? So you need to be extremely careful. Something that gives you an overview of the passage. As soon as I read the title, मुझे समझ में आ जाना चाहिए कि what I can anticipate in this particular passage, right? Again, सिमिलर टाइप के एरर्स वहां पे भी होते हैं, सिमिलर टाइप के ट्रैप्स वहां पे भी होते हैं. व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू आइडेंटिफाई योर टाइटल, रिमेंबर वन थिंग, दैट योर टाइटल कैन नेवर बी टू जेनेरिक और टू स्पेसिफिक. स्पेसिफिक का मतलब होता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, दे हैव पिक्ड द लाइन फ्रॉम द पैसेज एज द टाइटल. ठीक है? Just because it has been presented in the passage does not make it the title, right? Similarly, too generic का मतलब होता है too general. जैसे कि टॉपिक में एक किसी चीज के बारे में बात हो रही है बट कोई आप बहुत ही ब्रॉड चीज के बारे में बात कर रहे हो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट the river basins in our country, but suddenly we start talking about the river basins in all across the world. That is a very generic option. Okay, then coming back to another important thing here, also you might see a problem related to vocabulary. So usually what happens is they try to confuse you by giving you a very difficult vocabulary word in one of the options, and most people do not know the meaning, so they kind of end up marking the wrong one. So vocabulary is a genuine problem which everybody faces. Yes, as long as you can figure out the contextual reference, then that's great. Otherwise, I would recommend that you keep that kind of question for the very last. Okay? Now, let's get started with the first passage. So, because this is kind of like a beginner's session, a beginner series. So I did not intentionally bring very difficult passages. I want something that can actually, pique your interest, as well as, it gives you the confidence to solve such questions. So now let's get started with the first passage. It is about urban farming, and let me tell you one thing. So you will see two types of questions. The first one will be main idea, the second one will be title. Okay? Keep a clear head, read the passage carefully. If you do not know the meaning of any of the word, let me know. Suryansh, I think in this case we can say that the word traction means something that has started to gain momentum or popularity, something which is trending. Let me know once you are done reading this so that I can show you the questions. Done? What about the others? All right. Whatever you think is the answer, please write it in the chat box. I'm taking you to the next question. Also, please mention the question number. Okay, are we done? So I think you guys found the passage super easy, right? And also you guys kind of got the gist as to what to expect in the options. So here, this particular passage is about urban farming. What exactly is urban farming? Urban farming is something which has started to gain a lot of popularity lately, and it is a form of sustainable solution to food security. When I say sustainable, sustainable means addressing the present problem while also taking into account the future problems and future scenario. So यहाँ पे फूड सिक्योरिटी एज वेल एज एनवायरमेंटल जो कंसर्न्स हैं उसके लिए एक बहुत ही सस्टेनेबल अप्रोच है एंड दैट इज अर्बन farming. Where exactly is it taking place? So first of all, it only requires a limited space, so it utilizes whatever limited space that you have, like rooftops, balconies, vacant spots. So जहाँ पे भी थोड़ी बहुत भी जगह मिले हम वहाँ पे urban farming कर सकते हैं, as we can see. It actually helps us to reduce carbon footprint, which is huge because in today's world where pollution is at an all-time high, if we are even doing something as tiny as this, I think we are kind of contributing. So as we can see here, it actually helps us to lower the greenhouse gas emissions. Secondly, एक और चीज हमें देखने को मिलती है because यहाँ पे urban farming हो रही है तो people kind of get a way to interact with each other, so it boosts community engagement. Then we also see that the allowing the urban residents to connect with nature and also understand food production better. And there are many people who are who are known to be with green thumbs. Green thumbs का मतलब होता है somebody who's very much interested in farming. So I think they can definitely give you the insights that you want. हाँ, लेकिन सारी ही अच्छी चीजों के बारे में बात नहीं होती है. we do talk about all the positives in the first paragraph, but the second paragraph begins with a however. So, however का मतलब ये हुआ कि obviously we are going to contradict whatever we have said in the beginning. तो कुछ ना कुछ तो problem होगी. तो यहाँ पे भी problem हम जैसे देखते हैं. तो सबसे पहले it has some unique challenges. Unique challenges में the first one is the plants get limited sunlight. Secondly, the soil quality can restrict crop variety as well as yields. One more thing, because it is a restricted space, some plants actually require more space. So they will be restricted in their growth too. ठीक है, फिर हम बात करते हैं यहाँ पे एक और पोटेंशियल जो आपका इशू है वो ये है कि कंटामिनेशन from the city pollutants. Of course, they can contaminate these, plants, the herbs that we are trying to grow. So, ये सारे जो आपके obstacles है देखो हरी चीज में with the roses come the thorns, right? So every good thing comes with its own set of negative things. So here also we can see that despite all of these challenges, hindrances, फिर भी मैं ये बोलूंगी कि the advancements in hydroponics is basically growing your crops using water. I think you might have heard it or probably read about it somewhere. Have you? So hydroponics का मतलब होता है growing your plants in water. So advancements उसमें हो रहे हैं. Then there is vertical farming as well, and that kind of is very, very promising for our future, right? So that is what the passage is all about. We talked about सबसे पहले तो urban farming. We talked about what it entailed. We talked about its positives and its negatives, and then we concluded. Now let's see the options here. Urban farming is an outdated method. So this is a negative option altogether. That means you can no longer use it. Whereas we can clearly see that there has been a lot of advancement. So this is contradictory to what's given in the passage. Urban farming has potential to improve sustainability and community health. Absolutely right. And I think all of you chose the right answer. Rural farms are more important than urban farms. And although we did talk about urban farms, did the writer anywhere mention rural farms and how they are better? कहीं पे भी बात हुई थी इस चीज की कि रूरल फार्म्स कैसे बेटर होते हैं एक अर्बन फार्म से. So this particular thing is that unnecessary detail that I was talking about, something which is connected to the topic but is not in the passage anywhere. So this is not mentioned. Then we have urban farming faces no challenges whereas the second paragraph very clearly enumerates the kind of challenges you might come across. तो यहाँ पे ये भी गलत है. The correct answer is B. Then, which title best fits? So, decline of traditional agriculture in urban areas. So, although we do talk about the rise in urban farming, the writer did not really discuss the decline in traditional agriculture. Nowhere he's trying to, I would say, क्या बोल सकते हैं, disapprove or talk about the declination of traditional agriculture anywhere. So, no. Urban farming challenges and sustainable solutions looks like a promising option. Let's see the C1. Rural agriculture. The passage wasn't about rural agriculture, so obviously eliminated. The easy success of growing food in cities isn't really that easy. Then why did the writer talk about the challenges that we have been facing? Although it's a very tempting option, but we do have a better option, which is again B. ठीक है? Now, taking you to the next one. I hope you're ready. Are you guys done? See the first question. And also, do let me know which of the options have extreme words, because there are two options that have extreme words. Can you figure that out? कितने लोगों ने extreme words ढूंढ लिए? Showing you the next one. Absolutely right, Suryansh. Wonderful. Chalo. Let's see the passage. I think we all can agree that electric vehicles is the future. And as we can see, it has revolutionized this particular transportation sector lately. Now, the thing is, of course, पहला रीजन तो यही है कि we want to kind of remove our dependency on fossil fuels, because fossil fuels obviously create a lot of pollution and we have all faced the repercussions for that, right? तो आगे चल के यही समझ में आता है कि सबसे पहले तो अच्छी बात यह है कि EVs run on batteries and batteries can be charged through renewable sources. We can use solar energy, we can use wind energy, we can use hydro energy. So we do have an alternative at least here. Also, the government does see the potential in electric vehicles, and that's why they have been investing heftily in this particular sector. Again, we do talk about the positives, but benefits के साथ साथ हमने hurdles की भी बात की है. तो कुछ hurdles हैं जो हमें यहाँ पे भी overcome करने हैं, क्योंकि obviously we have not completely shifted our base to EVs. क्या ऐसा होने लग गया है क्या कि we only and only drive electronic or electric vehicles? ऐसा हुआ है क्या? नहीं. So in order to make that transition, to completely shift to it, of course, we need to take care of certain shortcomings. तो सबसे पहले तो यहाँ पे बात होती है कि battery production requires a rare and expensive mineral. And secondly, तुम लोगों ने देखा ही होगा, I think EVs have a very limited range. That means it can only travel to a few miles. And if you want to travel far, then of course you might not go on an EV. तो यहाँ पे वहाँ पे एक problem आ जाती है कि it only offers limited range. And secondly, the battery disposal, which kind of poses a bigger challenge than our dependency on fossil fuels. क्योंकि हम बैटरी को अगर डिस्पोज ही नहीं कर पाएंगे तो then it is going to create even more pollution. The pollution that we were trying to reduce, the problem पूरी तरीके से solve तो नहीं होगी. But the thing is, it is definitely seen as a very impressive, secondly promising in terms of our future. Because यहाँ पे देखा गया है, जैसे कि तुम लोग देख ही सकते हो कि it is going to promote sustainable mobility, and that is, I think, what we are seeking in future. So that's what the passage is all about. Here, the main idea of the passage, option A talks about how electric vehicles offer sustainable benefits. True. But face technological and environmental challenges. True. Okay. Electric vehicles are unsustainable. The writer is trying to sell electric vehicles as sustainable. So this is opposite to what's given in the passage. If you look at the next one, electric vehicles are already perfect replacements. So that means we have already completely replaced our dependency of fossil fuels. That means we no longer drive vehicles which are driven using petrol or diesel. ऐसा है क्या? Already perfect? Extreme. And governments are uninterested, then why are they investing? So answer is A, right? Then here we are talking about the suitable title, Electric Vehicles, the Future Without Challenges. Does that mean that we are not going to see any challenges in future when it comes to electric vehicles? Has it been claimed in the passage? No. The problems with fossil fuels in transportation. Did we discuss the problems that one faces when they are using a vehicle which is run using fossil fuels? We did not. So this is again not mentioned. Electric vehicles benefits and ongoing challenges, true. And government is not neglecting. They very well know. They are visionaries. That's why we are, obviously paving the path of electric vehicles in our country. So they are not neglecting them. Actually, they are putting a lot of attention. So the answer is C. I hope it is helping you build confidence. And because this is a beginner's class, so you can see the level of difficulty is pretty doable. But हाँ धीरे धीरे जैसे जैसे level बढ़ेगा तो automatically you will see इस session में तो नहीं but maybe in upcoming sessions you will see a moderate kind of a passage then eventually a very hard or difficult passage. So be prepared for that. But this actually helps you set the tone. Shall I take you to the questions? Taking you to the next one. Okay. So another very relevant topic, artificial intelligence, and I think most people are scared that AI is going to replace them, but that is exactly not what we are talking about here. We are talking about how it has evolved extensively over the last decades. Of course, it has. It has also changed the way we react to things. So coming back to transitioning from sci-fi to real world applications, पहले हम लोग देखते थे majorly it is being used in movies, right? To create that effect. But now it has seeped into real world applications. We can see it in healthcare, finance, economics, whatnot, basically. And the best thing about using AI is it knows how to identify patterns. And as soon as it has identified a pattern, it knows how to not make a mistake following that pattern, which is something which humans might do, a mistake. So coming back to, it helps you make decisions more efficiently than humans in many contexts, of course, because humans most of the times are, encountering dilemmas. Dilemmas is uncertainty. This has kind of led to improved diagnostics when it comes to maintaining records, maintaining, important data, creating a structure, strategy. It is actually something which is very, very useful. It also gives you personalized financial advice. It can even become your therapist, for all I know. So coming back to, however, AI development also poses certain ethical challenges. When we talk about ethical challenges, we are basically talking about, you know, issues such as bias in data. कितने लोग हैं यहाँ पे जिन्होंने चैट जीपीटी यूज किया है? क्योंकि usually when you say that this should be the answer, it kind of tries to confirm your answer despite there might be a mistake in the question. कितने लोग हैं ऐसा जो हो चुका है? So it probably would agree with you 99% of the times. It is more of a people pleaser, I would say. तो यहाँ पे bias हो सकता है, bias in data. Lack of transparency in decision making. Yes, the transparency which a human to human connection actually offers might not be found, through AI, because AI जो होता है वो obviously अपने ही हिसाब से काम करता है. And also, of course, potential job displacements. Most people are of the opinion that it is going to replace them, and that's the reason we need to start improving and honing our skills, because AI cannot really take that away from us. So coming back to policymakers, they have been proactive about this, even technologists, and they are actively debating कि कुछ ना कुछ तो rules and regulations होने चाहिए, certain decorum has to be followed, right? ऐसे हम उसको rampant जो हमारा यूज चल रहा है recklessly, carelessly, वो तो नहीं होने देंगे, क्योंकि obviously one day it might really dominate everything, right? So, in summary, we can see AI is definitely a transformative tool, but it also comes with its own set of pros and cons. So, that's why careful management and ethical oversight is something that needs to be kept in mind when we are using AI. Now, question number fifth. What is the passage's main idea about artificial intelligence? तो सबसे पहले मैंने तुम लोगों को एक्सट्रीम वर्ड्स के बारे में बोला ही था. In this case, there are two options with extreme words, only and always. See, the funda about extreme words is if you see an extreme word being used in the passage regarding the same context, then yes, that is your answer. If you only see it being used in the option, then that can never be your answer. So, artificial intelligence is only a fictional concept, but why is the writer talking about how it has seeped into reality? We can see it being used everywhere in finance, in politics, in technology, and everywhere, right? Then, artificial intelligence always replaces humans. Again, job displacement is a potential threat, but that does not mean that it always will replace human being, right? Then, artificial intelligence improves industries but raises ethical and social challenges. Yes, that's what the whole idea of the passage is all about, and policymakers have ignored, whereas we can clearly see that policymakers are concerned and they are actively debating guidelines and regulations to ensure responsible use. And which title best fits the passage? Artificial intelligence, sci-fi or reality? See, we were not really talking about whether it is still a part of sci-fi or whether it has become a part of reality. It is clearly established that artificial intelligence is used in the real world. It actually helps you solve real world problems. So, no, this wasn't really the debate. The benefits and ethical challenges of artificial intelligence, जैसे कि मैंने पहले भी बोला था, मेन आइडिया का जो कंडेंस्ड वर्जन होता है वही आपका टाइटल होता है. तो मेन आइडिया जो बोलता है उसी को ही छोटा कर दो तो यू गेट योर टाइटल. Option B is your answer. Artificial intelligence, the complete job replacement tool, very extreme, and that's why eliminated. Ignoring ethics. Was the writer talking about ignoring ethics and just simply using AI? No. Then why policymakers are concerned? So, okay, when we talk about analytical tone, so Vaibhav just asked me whether it has an analytical tone. Analytical tone जो होती है, उसमें the writer gives you introduction. He talks about the probabilities, the consequences, the positives and negatives, and then he wraps it up. So yes, Vaibhav, this is analytical. Absolutely correct. Very good. One last passage before we call it a day. Are you guys done? All right. Taking you to the next one. Ready to discuss? Okay. So, one of the most pressing and real concerns is climate change. And even if today we are not believing that it's real, then I think we're definitely living under the rock because whatever is happening, most of it is kind of, आप बोल सकते हो, is our responsibility. And that is exactly what we are doing. So, coming back to climate change represents one of the most pressing global challenges of our times, of course. Temperatures are rising, ice caps are melting, and extreme weather events. You can yourself understand, I think, wherever you must be living, you might have seen very erratic changes, that too seasonally. जिस समय बारिश नहीं आनी चाहिए उस समय बारिश आ जाती है. In the months when you should feel cold, you actually feel very warm, very hot. ठीक है, तो आजकल जो सीजन्स भी हैं वो भी एक्चुअली अपनी साइकिल फॉलो नहीं कर रहे हैं, एंड दैट काइंड ऑफ इज एन अलार्मिंग सिचुएशन फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस. Secondly, when we talk about the scientific consensus, which is basically a report, इस report में पता चलता है it has underscored or highlighted how human activities contributed to most of these problems, specifically the emission of greenhouse gases from industries, transportation. क्योंकि industries चला कौन रहा है अपने benefits के लिए? हम ही लोग. Transportation हो गया, deforestation. Yes, we keep on cutting trees just because we want to build new infrastructure. This is one thing that I think we all have studied in our EVS textbooks. So this is not a new topic for anybody, right? So coming back to efforts to mitigate, of course, there have been, I would say, organizations, there have been people who are, exclusively associated to this particular cause, and they are doing their best. So इसमें वो लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं for renewable energy adoption. But again, renewable energy adoption is something which is going to take a lot of time for the simple reason because it is expensive too. ठीक है? And also not easy accessibility. So coming back to emissions regulations, international agreements, ये सारी चीजें हैं. लेकिन हाँ, जितने भी अगर हम political divisions देखें, economic interest देख लें, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं every country would want to, mint money out of it. They would want to maximize their profits out of it. तो पैसा जहां आ जाता है वहां पे ऑब्वियसली यूनिफाइड एक्शन जो होती है वो कहीं ना कहीं डल पड़ जाती है. सो दैट्स एग्जैक्टली व्हाट वी सी दैट सम कंट्रीज prioritize short-term economic growth over environmental regulations, while others they advocate aggressive policies. So ऐसा नहीं है कि everybody is just only and only concerned about maximizing their profits. There are certain countries, but those handful countries cannot really bring about a massive change. You need to come together as a community, and that's what we talk about here. So public awareness is growing, thankfully. I think social media has definitely, raised awareness in terms of so many things which people weren't aware about before. So public awareness has definitely been growing, and however, driving grassroots movements and influencing policy making, that is something which needs to be changed, needs to be altered a little bit. So ultimately, आपको address तो करना ही पड़ेगा climate change. Secondly, awareness जो है वो बहुत important है. जहाँ awareness होगी वहाँ पे changes होंगे. बस इतना ही था passage. So, what's the primary message of the passage regarding climate change? So we can clearly see climate change is not significantly influenced by human activities, whereas यहाँ पे लिखा है कि the scientific consensus underscores human activities as the dominant driver. So, opposite to what's given in the passage. Climate change is a critical global issue requiring cooperative solutions. Yes. At the end of the day, it's our cooperation, unified attempts that is going to bring about a change. Economic growth always. The passage talks about some countries prioritizing economic growth. Some and always are very different words, right? Always का मतलब है हमेशा और some का मतलब होता है कुछ. तो ऐसा तो नहीं है कि हर कंट्री यही कर रही है. So this is a very extreme option. And public awareness has no effect. It has all the effect. क्योंकि वहां पे लास्ट में बोला गया है कि पब्लिक अवेयरनेस के कारण ही चीजें ट्रांजिशन या ट्रांसफॉर्म होते हुए नजर आ रही है. So answer was B for seventh one. Choose the best title. Economic growth versus environmental neglect. Again, the debate wasn't ever about earning more money or protecting the environment. Protecting the environment would always come first because if the environment would exist, then so shall we. अगर environment ही नहीं है तो हम लोग कैसे exist करेंगे? तो simple सी बात है. This is not really what the concern is of the passage. No solutions. The solutions are being worked upon, as we can see. We are trying to make amends in our ways. Denying climate change, nobody is denying it. We are actually accepting it in the passage. Climate change Urgency and global cooperation needed. Yes, of course. That is the need of the hour. So, this was about today's session, main idea and title. And you saw that the questions weren't that difficult because this is a beginner series. But the thing is, you did get a general idea as to how to approach it. So hopefully in the next sessions, when you attempt such type of questions, you'll be more confident. And that's it from my side, guys. That's a wrap. Webhoff, no. A critical tone is very, very harsh. So you will only be seeing the negative remarks by the narrator or the writer. But here we did talk about, I think 90% of the times we did talk about the problems and 10% we did talk about the positives. So I wouldn't say that it is critical overall. पूरा critical होने के लिए conclusion भी उससे agree करना चाहिए. ठीक है? So thank you so much everyone for your time and I'll be seeing you soon. This is Sukanya by the way. And until then, happy learning. Bye bye.